mainly against guys that don't throw many punches back. And I think against someone with the skills of George Groves, who we know is going to land accurately throughout, it's really going to push Eubank to the wire in a way that we've never seen before, not even in a fight with Billy Joe Saunders. The question marks I think people have on Froch, one, stamina. I'm not so sure if that, because I don't think that Eubanks will push him to the extreme that Froch pushed Groves. And I mean, Groves was outboxing. He was winning that fight. He was a mile in front at one point. In fact, he almost seemed to be making easy work of it. But I think when we see George extended, we'll be able to, when he lands that first couple of big shots, the reaction from Eubank will be very important in how I think the fight's going to go. Because if he lands and seems to wobble or trouble, then George can box at his pace, and then he's not going to run out of steam. If Eubank rolls straight through it and whacks him with something equally as hard straight back and pushes Groves out of his comfort zone, then I think if Eubank can step into range and keep pop, not slugging, just working at high tempo and moving, then he might tire Groves out, and then it might be a completely different fight. I think it's a long shot. I don't think that it will go that way, but I think if he can master that, and knowing how clever his dad is, maybe they will be able to pull that out, and then you've got a situation where the whole analysis could be thrown in the air again. But I mean, bearing in mind, look, George has proved himself as a technical boxer. He's won the ABAs. He's represented England. We know technically he's sound. His chin, there's been a lot of question marks about his chin. Well, Eubanks hasn't shown me yet that he punches hard enough. I mean, the guys that have knocked out or stopped or floored Groves, you've got in the amateurs Travis Dickinson, who's a big guy, very powerful, as we've seen in the pros, very powerful guy. He stopped him. Then you've had obviously Carl Froch stopping him twice. Kenny Anderson dropped George and had him in trouble in their fight. But these are all big guys, and they're known to be big punchers. So it'll be interesting. We'll see if Eubanks can punch anywhere near as hard as them, which I doubt that he can. I don't think that he does punch as hard as them. But if he can, then again, it throws it all up in the air. And this is only my opinion. I tell you what I think, whether it works or not. But coming from that, then, I don't think that Groves has a suspect chin. I also don't think that the question mark over his stamina is justified to the extent that it's made out to be. I think he ran out of steam because he boxed one of the best guys in the world and pushed him to the wire and boxed outside of his comfort zone for most of that fight, trying to, not because he was forced into it, because he wanted to impress. The way he was throwing his shots, it was all flash and to really showboat, and I don't think at the forefront of his mind was, I've got 12 rounds of this, slow down. You know, he seemed to just go with the moment, and that's the thing that lots of boxers do when they're inexperienced, and I think that's why he came up short there. The big thing I think is Chris Eubank Junior. He tends to he chooses to sit in front and throw these flurries of punches, and against lots of opponents that's right, and he's been able to do it because they've let him do it. But now you've got a guy with a very lightning fast, thunderous jab and thunderous right hand, and I mean, I think it's really going to be interesting to see what happens when George is able to connect with those big shots, because at that moment, suddenly we'll see where it's all leading. Obviously, in the Saunders fight, and boxers often revert to type. In the Saunders fight, Billy Joe Saunders starts tapping him, outboxing him, knocking him out of his comfort zone, and Chris Eubank's solution: sit down and throws these flurries of punches. Boxers normally revert to type when they're under pressure. He was under pressure there, that's what he done. If he does the same thing, if he reverts to type, if he does the same thing against George Groves, I mean, standing in front of a puncher, a one-punch knockout artist, and trying to land flurries of punches is suicide. I mean, it's crazy. It's self-destructive. So I think they must have something else that they're going to do that I can't think what yet at this moment. We will find out, I guess, on the fight, which is why I'm so intrigued by it. But we can't say. I mean, look, when he boxed a Reynold Quinlan, Quinlan came out straight away and said, "This guy can't punch. He's got no power there, nothing." And normally fighters, when they say something immediately after they get out of the ring, it's normally pretty accurate. And it's normally fairly pertinent. It's like one of the main things that stood out. So if the main thing that stood out was he hasn't got a punch, I would go with that. I don't think he has the power to stop Groves. So I think we can almost eliminate that as far as you can in any boxing match. You know, two guys swinging punches at each other, of course there can be a knockout. But I would go with what Quinlan said. I'd say, okay, this guy, by world-class professional boxing standards, is not a puncher. He also tends to swing, which those guys normally are less concussive than the short, tight punching guys. The guys that swing like that, it looks good, looks effective, but it rarely actually scores a knockout. And if he stands for too long in front of Groves, it's only to take one punch on the chin, and that will be it. I mean, even if he has got a good chin, he won't take it all night long. There will be a limit to what he can take. I think if Groves opts, which I just can't imagine he would, but if George Groves opts to stand in front of Eubank and have a tear-up with him, which he has been prone to doing sometimes in the past, but less so in the latter part of his career, more at the beginning, probably because he punches so hard that approach could often work, because if he lands that shot, he takes the opponent out. I don't think he will do it. And I think if he does opt to do that against Eubank, he's massively jeopardising his chances. I think he's taking a big risk where he doesn't need to, and he could be throwing it away. But sometimes, look, fighter can plan everything you want. Once they get in there, he can go and do something completely different. We'll see. I will be amazed if he decides to have a toe-to-toe tear-up, punch for punch, because I think if he does that, Eubank could well... If he does have the work rate and the chin that he's reputed to have, that we suspect he may have, George Groves could run into problems. But George is a smart guy. I don't see him taking that chance. I think he'll box. I think he'll be very cagey, very calculated. I think he'll take his time. I remember when Eubanks boxed Billy Joe Saunders, seeing him come to the ring and he was wearing like black shorts, black boots, a bit like sort of Jack Dempsey or Mike Tyson. And as soon as I saw that, I just thought, he's done. If he stands still and tries to rush or tries to do like a Tyson or a Dempsey on Billy Joe, he will get boxed. His ears boxed off, which he did for the first half of the fight. But I think because Billy Joe's conditioning was not on point, I think that's why the fight became so competitive in the second half. If we take that into consideration when we're trying to work out what may or may not happen with Groves, I think if he comes in with that attitude, going to sit in front of him and just I think Groves takes him out very early. What I actually think will happen, I don't think Eubank will do it. What I think will happen, I think Groves will come out purely to outbox. He'll have a game plan to outbox him for 12 out of 12 rounds. I think because of the experience that Eubanks has had with Saunders, where he left it too late, supposedly, I think he will start to take more chances. He will start to up the tempo and he will start to come forward. And I think that is extremely risky against Groves, and I think that's the point where he gets hit. So in terms of my prediction for the fight, if I have to put my finger on it, I think I'm going to say Groves by stoppage. I'm going to say Groves by stoppage in about 6 rounds. If I was going to put a bet on the fight, I'll go purely Groves to win, because the odds, I mean, he's the underdog. He's the underdog in this fight. I can't believe he's the underdog. All the things that I weigh up in terms of who should be favourite and who should not, they all point to Groves should be favoured. But they've made Eubank the favourite. So I think there's some really good value there, in fact, to put a bet on. And of course I will be betting. I think George Groves. I think if I had to put my finger on an exact prediction, I'll go for probably round 6, round 5, round 6. I think round 6 for Groves. But and that will happen because I think Eubank will come out of his protective shell, his tight guard, and I think he'll start to open up, and I think that's when Groves will get to him. But we'll see. Listen, guys, enjoy the fight. Thank you very much for watching, and please give us a subscribe if you enjoyed watching the vlog. See you again soon, guys. Enjoy the fight. See you then.